We return once again to Jamie Osborne's Upper Lambourne yard to catch up on the progress of our 4 juveniles. Excellent Puck has yet to race, and last time we saw him he had plenty of developing still to do, but how much progress will he have made? On our last visit, the chestnut filly, now named Outbid, was nearly ready to run, so why haven't we seen her on the track yet? The filly Devout and the colt Hardy Red have both made their debuts, and since then they've gone on to run 3 times each. But today would be D-Day, and now eligible to receive a handicap mark from the BHA's head of 2-year-old handicapping.
You know, Matthew Chester, who rates the 2-year-olds, he's very good at it. You know, I kind of admire to a degree the way that he holds the whole thing together, because, you know, he's got limited evidence. It's a very difficult thing to do, and 2-year-olds change. You know, the rate at which a 2-year-old changes is obviously greater than with an older horse in most cases. So he's got a very difficult job to do. But his interpretation of the form book really is key to how many nurseries we're going to win. You know, if Hardy Red is capable of running to 75, and that's it, and he's rated 75, he's not going to win a nursery. You know, because, you know, he'll run to that mark and something else in the race will run above its mark. So to win any handicap, you have to run above your mark. So if he's got us wrong to start with, we're in trouble. You know, the horse then needs to improve significantly.
In our last programme we saw Hardy Red make his debut run at Bath. Since then he's run again, including a second start, and a very good start, at Nottingham.
As we are now, we were struggling to find any decent ground to run him on, so we went to Nottingham really without too much regard for the opposition. It was just a question of getting another run in when on a bit of ground that wasn't too soft. And then it turned out that it did. We had a fair bit of rain and we were a bit committed to go, so it wasn't ideal. The greenness that he showed at Bath, he's kind of left it behind. And he nearly won. Not sure how good the race was. Obviously the Hannon horse was fancied, but ran very green and nearly gave the race away, just got up and beat us.
Having run so well on his second start at Nottingham, Hardy Red was, unsurprisingly, a hot favourite for his third and final start so far at Folkestone.
Hardy Red in the yellow jacket, Pippi against the rail with a few lengths to find, and then a break to Royal Mizar. They make the run down towards the final furlong, and Joey's Destiny on racecourse debut has scampered 2 to 3 lengths clear, ahead of Hardy Red in second. Behind those, Pippi running on to press the weakening Smiling Shark for third, but it's Joey's Destiny in the hands of Dane O'Neill in front, racing inside the final half furlong, 5 or 6 lengths clear, and won't be caught, and makes a pretty impressive winning racecourse debut. Joey's Destiny in the hands of Dane O'Neill is the winner. Pippi got up for second, just ahead of Hardy Red.
Thought on paper the Folkestone race looked like a penalty kick for him, so I thought it was worth taking the chance, but it didn't happen. So with that in mind, and the nursery's still 3 or 4 weeks away, I thought we'd take the opportunity just to castrate him, which we did. As you saw earlier in the year, he's slightly busy horse. You know, he wasn't overly keen on the girls, but I think, you know, I think just changing, you know, taking that level of testosterone out of him ought to help him and make him a sort of more durable second half of the season horse that can ply his trade in nurseries and hopefully win us a couple.
Having been gelded, Hardy Red is due a fairly light piece of work, but the work, rather like the racing, has been disrupted by the incredibly wet conditions. With the rain hammering down, Jamie Osborne's forced to make a few changes to his schedule.
Take him in, take him in. Take him in. Mav, you're going to give Field of Dreams a lead. Take her in. It's chucking it down with rain, so what I had planned for most of those horses, I'm going to abandon, because it doesn't really make a whole heap of difference to them whether they do that today or tomorrow. If they have an easy day today, it's not not the end of the world, and it's just basically playing it in a very cautious manner. You know, whenever you work a horse, you're stressing it. When you're stressing a horse, you know, you are weakening its immune system, you are lowering its immunity to anything. And getting them cold and wet and stressing them at the same time, before you know it, you could just have those little coughs and colds that are going to put you back. So if there really isn't any necessity to gallop a horse in the pouring rain, I don't bother.
There are still a few lots to work, but Jamie Osborne takes time out of the working morning for the moment of truth, the phone call to the handicapper to find out what mark Hardy Red has been given.
Thanks, bye. He basically has us penciled in our 3 runs. On our first run to running to a mark of 45. Fair enough, okay? Second run, running to a mark of 79. And our third run, running to a mark of 67. So basically what he's saying is that our mark will lie somewhere between 79 and 67, but the spread's too big. He can't sort of decide which end of that it's going to be. He said he could give him a mark now, but it would be 79, and he's aware of the fact that that's probably unfair. So I think we need to just sit. I mean, thankfully, we are probably still 3 weeks away from being ready. So enough might occur within that 3 weeks. You might see more evidence and then hopefully decide where the level lies. I have a sneaky suspicion whatever happens, he's going to settle down to sort of somewhere around the mid-70s, I would think. If I had him ready to roll now, I would be annoyed by this. But as I haven't, I can be a bit calmer.
Matthew Tester also tells Jamie that the filly Devout has yet to gain a mark too. She'll need to run closer to some horses at the business end of her race before he'll give her a mark.
With Devout, I mean, obviously she's been a bitter disappointment. You know, her first run we could just about make an excuse for, but the next 2 were just shockers. So what we're doing with her is just a leap of faith. You know, you could say on what she's achieved so far, she really doesn't warrant paying a training fee for, she doesn't warrant being here. But she did show us enough early on to suggest that she isn't useless. So obviously after 3 ordinary runs like that, the only sensible thing to do was to give her a break. Before this filly ran, I felt that she might end up maybe somewhere 70s to 80. You know, I thought she was going to be okay. I was clearly wrong. And you know, now I'm in a position with her that I'm thinking, well, if we can win a race, I'd settle for that.
Last time we saw her, we knew her simply as the Chestnut Auction House filly, but now she has a name. She's called Outbid, and after 1 or 2 setbacks, she's nearly, once again, ready to start.
She's had respiratory infection. She cut a leg as well, but that was nothing. I mean, we could have kept going through that. I was a little bit suspicious of her following piece of work. I mean, I don't scope as a matter of routine. I used to do, but I don't anymore. And I was just a little bit suspicious of her. So we scoped her, and she was fairly gunky. A little bit of inflammation in her upper airway, plenty of mucus. So we had to just back off. She's taken her time to come right. We're going to actually do a little bit of work with her this morning, which will be as much as she's done since then, and then we're going to scope her immediately afterwards, just to see where we are. I would hope that she's fairly clean now.
Outbid works well and shows some good speed and no ill effects. But the real test will be the scope, which will take place shortly. The 4th member of our quartet has been the slowest to mature so far. Last time we visited, Excellent Puck was a long way off running. But today he's going to work with some slightly better horses to see what he can do. Excellent Puck, seen here in the centre of this group under Jack Doyle, is working with two much smarter, much more experienced juveniles. And despite his best efforts, he can't quite keep up.
He wasn't quite ready for that. I probably jumped the gun a little bit. But that would have done him no harm. He just wasn't quite capable of going with them. You know, just, it's all just... But that doesn't mean he wouldn't necessarily end up being better than them. But he's just at the stage he's at. They've done more work. He wasn't quite capable of going with them. You know, he's a very laid-back character. That will have woken him up a little bit. See how he is through the next few days and then decide what we're going to do. But I think my original assessment that he was probably going to be a sort of an autumn 2-year-old is probably right.
We return from the gallops to find out that even straightforward work is not always straightforward. Coming back from the gallops, the owner mare tells Jamie Osborne that Outbid has been kicked by another filly. So now, as well as a visit from the vet to be scoped, she has a small wound that needs treating too.
No. Hopefully it's nothing. As you can see, it's just marginally broken the skin, but it'll be fine. That won't hold us up. Just something to treat. What's more of a concern is what we're about to find when we put the scope down. You know, something like that will have a little bit of bruising. Nothing, you know, but it's not. Obviously, rather that hadn't happened, but it did. You know, she's worked okay. She's shown plenty of speed. She wouldn't have blown overly hard at the end. If she scopes clean now, we can kick on. We can just, you know, that won't hold her up. We get another bit of work into her at the end of this week. See where that lands us up. I'd say probably a couple of breezes next week, and then the week after we'll be ready.
A little bit in here, Jamie, but it's probably...
Outbid copes well with the process of being scoped and behaves herself, and the early signs are good.
The discoloration on it is probably, you know, will be a bit of residual from the previous infection. You know, those things look worse than they are. I would imagine that will come back from the lab fine, and we're kind of free to kick on. Yeah, she's a good action filly. I wouldn't run her on anything too soft to start with. And if we had to go to the all-weather to avoid soft ground, we would do.
As our 2-year-olds continue to mature, we continue to learn more about the training game. We learn how so much is often out of the control of the trainer. The weather, ailments and injuries can all interfere. And of course, the say of the handicapper will prove very influential too. Our filly Outbid is nearly ready to run. She's showing great promise in her work. Excellent Puck continues to make excellent progress, and while still a long-term project, he shows great promise. Hardy Red? Well, we'll see what mark the handicapper gives him, and hopefully Devout can show some improvement when she returns to the track after a rest.